Welcome to the podcast for and about Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Britany Felix, and every Monday through Friday I'll be talking about a different aspect relating to the Springs, including upcoming events, restaurant reviews, local business spotlights, media coverage about the Springs, public works projects, local activities, answering your questions about the city, and much, much more. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the updates, and also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find links to all of those social media accounts at springspodcast.com/social media. The Colorado Springs podcast is proudly sponsored by Elevation Hydration. Elevation Hydration is the only hydration therapy clinic serving Colorado Springs, and they are dedicated to helping you elevate your life. They use intravenous vitamin therapy to help athletes needing a boost of energy or help recovering after a tough competition, people experiencing cold-like symptoms or dehydration from the flu, anyone needing to recover quickly from a rough night out. I'm looking at you, college kids. And just anyone wanting a healthy alternative to preventative care. They have a wide variety of hydration packages to help address whatever your needs are. They're conveniently located inside Lush Beauty Lounge at 812 Village Center Drive, and if you mention this podcast during your visit, you'll receive $10 off any hydration package. To learn more about Elevation Hydration or to schedule an appointment, visit springspodcast.com/hydrate. Welcome to the second episode of the Colorado Springs podcast. Tuesdays are going to be devoted to frequently asked questions, and I would like for these to be about the city, obviously, and what's going on around the city and things that you want to know about it. But of course, this can be about me as well if you want to get to know me better. And so since this is the first week of the show, I've decided to answer some of those questions that people may be wondering, or just giving you a little bit more background on who I am so that you can get to know me a little bit better as the person who's going to be talking to you 5 times a week. So if you have not listened to episode 0 of the podcast yet, which I actually released a couple of weeks ago to kind of give a little bit of an introduction to who I am and what this podcast is about, I will give a brief rundown right now. If you've already listened to it, I'm sorry. But I am 30 years old. I recently relocated from Indiana to Colorado Springs with my husband and our 2 four-legged children, also known as dogs. We originally visited Colorado Springs in August of 2015 for the Tiny House Jamboree. I am one of those crazy people who loves tiny houses. But we came here that weekend, and it was my first time back in the mountains for a while. I attended university in Montana for a semester, fell completely in love with the mountains, visited Colorado. When I was in the 6th grade, my family came out here for a ski trip to Keystone. I've been hooked on the mountains ever since, and living in Indiana, you just don't get much of them. And my husband actually is also from Indiana, and until coming to Colorado Springs in August of 2015, he had never seen what I call real mountains. He used to call me a mountain snob because when we would go down to Tennessee, he would get excited and say those were the mountains, and I would always cringe when he would say that because it would drive me nuts, and I would scream at him, "These are not real mountains, you don't understand." And finally, once he came to Colorado Springs, he understood what I meant, and he has been hooked on them ever since. We are both outdoorsy people. I always say that my husband was a mountain man in another life. He would love to just live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere and live off the land and hunt and farm and fish and never talk to anyone else ever again. I'm a little bit different, but I do absolutely love being in nature. It's what refreshes my soul and recharges me, and it's where I can feel most alive and at peace, and I can just breathe, really, when I'm outdoors. So we were drawn to all of the things that Colorado Springs has to offer, like so many people who relocate here. The incredible amount of outdoor activity that there is here around the town. We lived in Indianapolis, which is the capital city of Indiana, and so we were right in the city. We lived in the suburbs, had a, 2,000 square foot cookie cutter home, corporate jobs, traditional city lifestyle, and we hated almost every second of it. So the adventure, but also the relaxation here in the city really drew us here. There are places where you can go just, 15, 20 minutes outside of town and you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't have to see another soul if you don't want to. And it's really, really nice. So we actually sold our house in the spring of 2016 and took off on a 2+ month road trip in our RV. We traveled around the western United States and just visited a bunch of national parks, basically. We spent a lot of time in Utah, went to Vegas, visited the Grand Canyon, made our way, across Kansas, and spent some time here in Colorado, spent a few weeks actually. And we absolutely want to explore the state more. We love getting out and checking out all of the other places around Colorado Springs, which is another thing that drew us to the city. Not very far away are new places to explore constantly. So now that we are here, we've been here for 3 months now, 4 months, somewhere around in there. Can't really remember. 2016 was kind of a whirlwind for us. But we are still absolutely loving everything about this city. It just feels like home. It feels like where we have been meant to be the entire time. My husband has gotten into mountain biking since he has been out here, so he does that pretty much every chance he possibly can. I, unfortunately, actually injured my ankle when we were in Colorado Springs this past August. Before we moved here, we were visiting, actually. Came back for the Tiny House Jamboree again, and I injured my ankle coming out of, the third house I visited on the very first day. And my ankle has never fully recovered. It did not break, supposedly. That's what they say. But it still is painful every day. So I have been kind of limited in the activities that I can do. But I do still get out and try to go hiking as much as I can. But I am very excited for spring to come so that we can also get into kayaking and fishing. And basically, I just love being outside. I just about don't care what I do. So some of my husband and I's favorite places since we have been here in the Springs, I love Bear Creek Canyon and Gold Camp Road. All of that out that direction, that part of the city is very fascinating to me. We've hiked out there a little bit and I just love it. It's one of my preferred places. Whenever we decide to go hiking, that's usually where I suggest going. And I also love Red Rocks Canyon Open Space. It's another one of my favorites to go hiking at. My husband, his favorite place to bike is actually Ute Valley. He loves going out to Ute Valley and biking around there. I've hiked there a little bit, and it's interesting, it's fun, but I'm not quite as in love with it as he is. But we both also love Garden of the Gods, which is a very stereotypical answer, I'm aware, but it's honestly what made us fall in love with this city to begin with. We certainly don't have anything like that back in Indiana, and from the first moment that we drove through Garden of the Gods, we were hooked on this city, and so it just kind of has a special place in our heart. When we were actually back home after that first visit, we would kind of just think to ourselves, man, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just head over to Garden of the Gods after work and go walking around for a little while? Because in the middle of the city, we just had nothing like it. So Garden of the Gods was kind of this thing that we held on to, this dream that we aspired to have, where we could just head over there anytime we wanted. So while it is stereotypical, I say it's stereotypical for a reason. It's incredible. There's just a magical, powerful feeling when you're there, and it has a sentimental place in my heart. So kind of some other things about me just to get to know me a little bit better. I do host another podcast. It's actually been going live since February of 2016. Where I interview people who travel the world full time, and I figure out exactly how they make that happen. A traveler is who I am, down to my very core. I love, 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 love traveling and exploring and having new adventures and meeting new people. And as a result of starting that podcast, I actually have created my own podcast production company. So that's what I do for a living. And I do work from home, working on podcasts for my clients, as well as both of my podcasts. So pretty much my entire life revolves around podcasts. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have 2 dogs. They are like our children. We baby them. We love them. And we've had them for a while. Our oldest one is 8 years now, actually. And they both are rescues. Animal rescue and especially dog rescue is something very, very near and dear to my heart. In Indiana, I actually volunteered with a local animal rescue for a few years before we moved. And one of our dogs is actually a foster failure from that experience. She was a foster for the rescue that we just could not let go of because she was so sweet and adorable. And when she came to us, she was terrified and scared, and we really worked to rehabilitate her. And once we worked through all our issues, we just couldn't let her go. Some other things about me to kind of help get you to know who I am. I love to read, and I love to watch movies. Netflix binging is also my way to escape when I'm not able to get outdoors. So I can definitely find that balance between being adventurous and being completely lazy. Some of my favorite shows that you can absolutely get me to talk about anytime are Breaking Bad, Parks and Recreation, Vampire Diaries. As embarrassing as that is, it got me hooked and I have not been able to give up on it. House of Cards, The Office, New Girl, Vikings. There's kind of just a wide variety of stuff. I can get into almost just about anything. And it's honestly kind of the same for my musical preferences as well. I'm kind of all over the board, all over the place. I like everything from alternative to classical to pop, of course. I was in the 6th grade when Backstreet Boys became popular here in the United States, so I was right in their target demographic, and I have been obsessed with them ever since. But again, I can like just about anything. As long as you're not screaming in my ear, I can pretty much get into it. And one other last little interesting tidbit is that I actually used to be a paranormal investigator, aka a ghost hunter. My husband and I lived in Arkansas for 3 years, and while I was there, I was a member of the Central Arkansas Society for Paranormal Research. Our acronym actually spelled CASPER, which I still think is a genius name for paranormal investigators. But yes, I was one of those crazy people that you would see going into an abandoned building at night and trying to get some kind of evidence of paranormal activity. I have experienced paranormal activity since before I can even remember. I've been told stories by my family of events that happened that I don't even remember. But they have not stopped, and they continued all the way through to present day. I am what I like to call a skeptical believer. I've had too many experiences to not believe that ghosts exist, but I also believe that 9 times out of 10, there is an absolutely logical and scientific explanation. So that's generally another topic that you can probably get me talking about if you really wanted. And that's going to kind of wrap it up. That's just a little bit more information about me, just so that you can get to know me a little bit better. If there are any other questions that you have for me, any other things that you would like to know, and if you also have any questions about the city, I would love to answer those as well. So reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. You can find links to both of those by going to springspodcast.com/social media, or you can just email me contact@springspodcast.com. And that's going to pretty much wrap it up for today. I want to invite you to come back tomorrow, where I'm going to talk about the Summit House project going on Pikes Peak. It's an interesting thing that I have been hearing little tidbits about for a little while now, but I just was curious and wanted to learn more, so I figured I would share that information with you guys as well, just in case you're not aware of what's going on with that project. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you back here tomorrow.